Hello. Um, I am here today to talk about change. Change is something that a lot of us talk about a lot. A lot of us want to create change in our lives, but change is hard. It's scary, and our brains are not wired to be accepting of change. They are wired to see it as something that is dangerous and threatening. And so they want to protect us, which is great. It's great that we have brains that want to protect us and keep us safe. And there are really good reasons that they do that. And so we want to be really appreciative that that happens. But at the same time, we want to recognize some of the tricks that our brains will play on us in order to keep us from making these changes that it views as threatening, so that we can make more informed decisions about what is really best for us. So you kind of want to think of your brain as a toddler who does not always know what's going on, has very strong ideas about what they want to do, but those ideas may not be the best or the most safe. And so you are in control. And you need to kind of talk to that toddler brain of yours and explain why it doesn't make sense to do something or it does make sense to do something, so that you can move forward and create the change that you want and create the life that you want to live. So I just want to talk about some of the reasons that our brains give us to avoid change, because they're really tricky and they basically make up a lot of shit, and they're really believable, and so we buy it. We all do. It's part of being human, and it's not something that you can completely avoid. But the more aware you are of what might happen in a given situation, the better able you are to recognize it and make some changes and kind of have that conversation with your toddler brain. You're not going to be able to do it 100% of the time. Nobody can. It doesn't matter how knowledgeable you are about the way your brain is wired and how you think. We all have blind spots and we all have triggers. And so inevitably, there are going to be those times that we just, we fall for it. But the more aware we are that that is something that can happen, the more we can question the thoughts that we have and really ask ourselves if they're just thoughts or if they're actual facts. So, my hope in talking to you about this is just to raise your level of awareness around the way that your brain works and the stories that you might be telling yourself. What I don't want to happen is that you're going to take this information and use it against yourself. Like, oh my God, I can't believe I fell for it. There's no like shame and blame here, because again, we all do it. And it's just about building awareness so that you can have some compassion for yourself when you recognize it and think to yourself, oh yeah, of course I'm doing that, because this, I'm thinking about making this change and that's really scary. So of course my brain is going to start to create this diversion and this drama and like start, spewing all of these crazy ideas at me. Totally normal, nothing has gone wrong. I'm just going to take a deep breath and really kind of sort through everything before I make a decision. So I have, I think it's 3 or 4 reasons today that I wanted to share with you, that are reasons that people often give as for why they're not going to go ahead and make the change, even though they know in some deep part of themselves that it's a change that would be for the better and it's something that would add value to their lives. Um, this is their brain trying to talk them out of it. So the first thing that people say is that they can't afford it, whatever it is. It is a knee jerk reaction for a lot of people. Doesn't really matter how much or how little money you have. Um, People say it at all levels of income. And they often say it without really having any idea of whatever it is that they want to do might cost. So, for example, let's say you want to lose some weight and you're thinking about, you know, spending more money on to buy fresh produce or unprocessed foods, or you want to hire a trainer and start working out at a gym, or you want to work with a nutritionist. And before you even start talking to people and getting pricing, your first thought is, oh, there's no way I can afford that, forget it. And then you just kind of shut down the idea and you stay right where you are. So if that is something that is coming up for you, around a change that you want to make in your life, I want to give you some questions that you can ask yourself to start to tease out whether what is going on in your brain is the truth or just the story that you're telling yourself, or if you need more information. So when you think to yourself, I can't afford it, the first question you want to ask yourself is, what does that mean? Because people say that and it can mean a whole bunch of different things. So maybe it means that you are struggling to put food on the table and you're not sure that you can pay your bills every month, you're worried about paying your mortgage or your rent. It could be that. It could be that you are up to your eyeballs in debt and your car's about to be repossessed and you really just, are living on a shoestring. That's a possibility. It could mean that you told your kids you were going to take them to Disney next year, and so your money is going into the Disney bucket and you don't want to spend it on anything else, or you feel like you can't spend it on anything else. It might mean that you have the money in your savings account, but you don't like taking money out of savings, and so you're not going to do it. You've just shut down that idea. It might mean that you would have to take out a loan, either from a family member or a friend or from the bank, and that isn't comfortable for you. So you just decide that that's not a possibility. The next question is, if you had to find the money for something, for an emergency, could you find it? How would you find it? If there was a leak in the roof, or if somebody in your family got sick, or your car broke down, could you find the money to pay for whatever that thing is? If the answer is yes, then ask yourself, why are you prioritizing that thing, that event, and figuring out how to get the money, even if it might cause you some hardship? What is it about those things that make them more pressing than this other change that you're thinking about making that you don't have the money for, or you're telling yourself you don't have the money for? There's no right or wrong answer to any of these questions. It's just about really getting clear on the choices that you're making and what the thoughts are behind those choices, so that you don't have to pay for anything, but you want to know exactly why you are not paying for something. Is it because you truly can't afford it, or is it because you are choosing to value something else? That's all. And that is completely within your prerogative. You just want to understand that that's the choice that you're making, because it's going to influence other choices that you make down the line. The other thing that you want to think about if you're in the I can't afford it boat is, how much is this thing actually going to cost? Have you researched it? Have you looked at multiple options at different price points? If you are planning a vacation and you make $100,000 a year, compared to someone who it makes $1 million a year, you both may still be planning vacations, but the hotels that you look at, the airfares that you look at, the locations that you look at are going to be different. You may both still end up at the beach, possibly even the same beach, but the way that you get there is going to look different based on what you can afford to pay. So there are almost always multiple price points within whatever, whether it's hiring a trainer or buying groceries or working with a coach or going to a therapist. There are almost always, or buying a whole new wardrobe. there are different price points. And so within your level of affordability, the chances are there is something that is going to be accessible to you, if not in the immediate, then if you plan for it someplace down the road. And that's the other thing, is if this thing is really important to you, this change, as if it's as important as you're saying that it is and that you really wish you could make it happen, do you have a plan? If you truly can't afford it right now, or if you feel like you have to make different choices right now, do you have a plan to save the money so that you can do whatever the thing is down the line? You also want to think about how much money you could afford to spend right now. And if this thing was available at that price, would you do it? And really sit with that and ask yourself, if whatever this activity is that's going to help me create change, if I could do it within my affordability or for free, if I feel like I really can't afford it, would I still do it? And really sit with that, because I'm going to bet you that there is some hesitation. Even if you had the perfect scenario, there may be an underlying level of hesitation that has nothing to do with money. And you want to get clear on that so that you can work on that and then allow yourself to move forward. Okay, the second reason that people give is that they don't have time. Again, this is another big one. People are overwhelmed, they feel stretched really thin, and they truly believe that they don't have time. So here are some questions. If those are your thoughts about creating whatever the change is, these are some thoughts to ask yourself. Again, what does that mean? I don't have time. So how are you spending your time? Are you working 80 hours a week? Are you binge watching TV all weekend? Are you scrolling on your phone for a couple of hours every day? Are you cleaning up after everyone in your household? How are you spending your time? Where is it going? Are you, from the moment you wake up in the morning till you go to bed at night, are you constantly actively doing things that absolutely have to be done? The second question to ask yourself is, if there was a crisis that needed your attention, how would you find the time to deal with it, with whatever the crisis is? What would you do if suddenly, something exploded tomorrow and you had to deal with it? How would you figure out how to do it? What would you let go of? And why would you choose to let go of it in order to deal with whatever? Again, what makes that crisis a priority and not the change that you're trying to create? Third reason that people give is, too many people need me, and putting my needs first feels selfish. This is a big one, especially if you are a parent, and I think particularly if you're a mom. But lots of other people have it too. You don't have to be a parent to feel this way. You may have family members that you're taking care of. You may have a big responsibility at work. There could be a million reasons or a million people that you feel like you need to take care of, whether or not you are a parent. So I'm sure that you are familiar with the oxygen mask analogy, which is you need to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you give it to like a child that's with you. Essentially, take care of yourself first so that you can take care of others. I also really like the analogy of you can't pour from an empty cup. To me, it's a little bit more illustrative of what's truly happening. Because in my crazy head, I think, well, but if I held my breath, I could put the oxygen mask on the kid and then I could put it on myself. I can't pour from an empty cup. No, I really can't. There's like nothing there. So either way, both of those analogies are designed to remind us that if you're not taking care of yourself, it's really hard to take care of somebody else well and to the level that you want to be. So I want you to really think about how can taking care of yourself allow you to do a better job of taking care of the people that you love and that you want to take care of. I also want you to think about this, and this is for parents or grandparents. Um, if you are taking care of children, do you want to model the idea that you have to sacrifice all of your own needs to truly be there for someone else? Is that the model that you really want to give them? So that that's what they're growing up believing. And as they go out into the world and maybe start to take on responsibilities and start caring for others, is that what you want them to think? Is that how you want them to model their lives? The third question is, when you're not taking care of yourself and you are exhausted or irritable or overwhelmed, are you showing up in the way that you want to for those people that you love? Does that, yes, maybe you are there physically, but if you have not taken care of your own soul, your own mental well being, even your own physical well being, are you truly there in the best possible way for the people that you're taking care of? And then the last question to ask yourself is, what happens to the people that you're taking care of if you get sick? If you kind of just reach the point of physical or mental exhaustion, who takes care of them then? The last reason that people use, that I'm going to talk about, there are many other reasons, but the last reason that I'm going to talk about today is I don't want to rock the boat. I'm making a big deal out of something that I don't want to, it's going to make people angry, it's going to upset people. I don't want to rock the boat. And there's truth to that, because when we make changes in ourselves and in our lives, it doesn't just impact us, it does impact the people around us. And so chances are there's going to be pushback because people have grown to expect a certain, certain things to happen in a certain way. And then when that changes, they're confused and they might get upset. That's normal. That's transition. Transitions can be challenging for a lot of people, for most people. The transitions are always rough. Even if you're somebody that transitions well, it takes a little while to get used to the change. So, yes, there's probably going to be a transition. People are probably going to be thrown off balance. That's absolutely true. But that doesn't mean that anything has gone wrong. It just means that you're in transition. So I want you to think about, what if the change is better for everyone? And sometimes that change, that better for everyone, isn't felt by some people in the immediate. So I'll give you an example from my own life, which is when I was about 10, my mom decided to go back to work. She had been a stay-at-home mom since I had been born. And then when I was 10, my youngest brother was in school, so she decided that she could go back to work. I was really not happy about that. I wanted her to be home. I had this image that I got from the Brady Bunch or some other show, that my mother should be home baking cookies when I got home from school every day. And so I was not happy that she went back to work. but she did because that's what she needed for herself. And I ended up being really grateful that she made that decision because she was a role model for me as I was making decisions about when I was going to go back to work after having my kids. And so in the end, and honestly, it, I'm sure it, I was grateful for that before the, I was in my 40s. But if you had asked me in that first year, even when she went back, I would have told you no, that it was the worst thing ever. But it was something that that ended up helping me grow. So she did me a favor. I'm a more independent and resilient person because of that experience. And so um, we need to think about things in those terms when we make decisions, when we create change for ourselves that impact others, even if they're not happy about it in the immediate, it may still in the long run be beneficial. And I'm talking about children. Um, as far as adults go, we everyone has to make their own decisions, and we are not responsible for the way that other people feel. I mean, obviously, we want to make decisions with our best interests in mind, and to the best of our abilities with other people's best interests in mind. It's not that we're going to make these decisions to get back at someone or to be revengeful. But if we are making a decision for ourselves about creating change, even if someone else doesn't like it, that's something that they have to work through on their own. Or maybe you work through it in the relationship, but it doesn't mean that one person stagnates themselves because the other person isn't comfortable with that change. Because we all need to be able to show up as the best versions of ourselves. And if someone really loves us, hopefully they are able to come to terms with that, even if it may be a little difficult in the beginning. So those were the four reasons that I want to talk to you about today. And what I wanted to say that underlies all of them is fear. We are afraid of change. We are afraid that we might try something and we fail. We are afraid we might try something and that we succeed. And then that's a whole new set of circumstances that we need to deal with. We are afraid that we make a change and maybe we leave someone behind or we upset someone, we move away from the pack. Because remember, that is from an evolutionary perspective, that is our goal, is to always stay with the group because there's safety in numbers as far as what, when we were cave people. But that's not the case anymore. And so, but it's still really scary on a very like visceral level to think that you might be leaving the group in order to go out and forge your own path. So if you find yourself with a change that you really want to create in your life, but suddenly one of these reasons or another reason is coming into your head about why that's not a good idea, you need to really question it. Maybe it isn't a good idea. Maybe there are good reasons that you shouldn't do it, or that in the way that you want to do it, it doesn't make sense. But I'm going to say chances are that's probably not the case. And you don't know for sure until you truly like pull it apart and really understand, why do I want to make the change in the first place? Why do I feel like that's important, like important enough for it to be in my head and something that I'm considering? And then why am I telling myself that it doesn't make sense? And really look at, is what I'm telling myself true? Is it true that I can't afford it? Is it true that, rocking the boat is going to cause too many problems? Is it really true? And look at those questions and really think about, what am I valuing? I'm saying this is important, but I'm not willing to step up and pay for something that I can afford if I really think about it, or that I do have time for if I stop, watching Netflix for 3 hours when I get home from work, or take myself off of social media or whatever it is. Um, and really look at what are you prioritizing. We make time and we find money to do the things that we believe are important. So, do you think that you are important enough to make that change? And do you believe that it's important enough for you to make that change so that you can be there for your family, be more present for your family? um, that's a decision that only you can make. But I just want to make sure that you have all of the information so that you're making an informed decision regardless of what it is. And so that it is in your best interest. And the more information you have, the better position you're in to make the decision that is right for you. So thank you for watching today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you soon.